Going today? Welcome to another episode of Simple Business Stewardship. Today, we're going to dive into how to thrive in a recession. I think it was July that the numbers came out that our economy was in a recession. But just from talking with different business owners, different entrepreneurs, both online and here in the Denver area, I think we're starting to feel the effects of it as entrepreneurs now more than we did even in July. So how is this affecting us? Type in the chat, let me know, how is this affecting you? How is this affecting people that you know? Obviously, we saw the prices of different goods that we require to run our businesses. We saw those start to go up. And so that started putting pressure on our margins. And so what was the natural response? It was to also raise prices, right? Those costs have to get passed down to the consumer. There you go. There's your 10-second lesson on inflation, right? We experience it, so we get it. We don't have to learn that from a textbook. But as inflation continues to be a problem and as different challenges like hiring continues to be a problem, it's hard to find a way to grow if A, it's hard to hire people, B, you're experiencing sort of this ceiling on what customers are willing to pay. You're like, hey, I'm just going to go without, or I'm just going to DIY my way through this challenge that you could have helped me solve, right? So there's so many different, and it'll affect different industries different ways, but there is this common thread of people aren't willing to pay a certain amount over like this threshold, right? Because they just can't. And that makes it difficult. It also makes, concepts of like scaling difficult, or how do I, well, in these circumstances, 6 months ago or a year ago, 2 years ago, I could have reached my goals, but now how do I reach my goals when I feel like everything is pushing back against me? And that's what a lot of people are coming up against. And so I wanted to share with you sort of how to reframe this idea of thriving in an economic recession as you move forward to build your business. Now, I'm not going to turn a blind eye to these economic circumstances. They are very real and they are legitimate and real challenges. And at the same time, I want us to stay really hyper focused on the things that are in our own control. So I used this analogy in a LinkedIn post earlier this week, and I think it bears repeating that navigating a recession as a business owner is a lot like sailing a ship through a storm. Now, I've only gone sailing twice and I got seasick both times, so I'm not the expert on sailing, okay? But I think the analogy is really great because in a storm, that is your set of circumstances. And if you are the captain of that sailboat or that ship and you go sailing into a storm, you need to have certain things in place. The first thing is you have to make sure that the boat's in good condition. You want to make sure it doesn't have any leaks. You want to make sure the sails are positioned where they need to be and that there's no tears in them. You have to make sure that the ropes are not going to fall apart. If your business is not financially sound, that's like sailing into a storm and you've got a leak in your boat. So the first step is going to be to patch those leaks, to fix what needs to be fixed. How can you be as financially strong as possible in your business so that your business can kind of take a beating when it has to, when economic circumstances are not ripe for growth? So that is the first thing. That's more defensive, and but when we're so growth focused, we often forget about, hey, we need to also be prepared for a storm. We can't just forge ahead expecting and assuming that the weather is going to be cooperative with us, right? That we're always going to have that tailwind, pushing us along to our destination. We're going to come up against some resistance and some challenges. And so in order to be financially prepared for that, there are a few things that you can do. And I want to share with you a few things of what those are, and then we're going to get into strategy for how do you navigate and continue to make forward progress and not only be defensive and be prepared but also how can you kind of keep going? So the first thing is to know your profit margins. Revenue is a great goal to have, but it's really a secondary goal. You don't just want to make more revenue if all of your profits are being eaten up by expenses. And this happens with $100,000 companies, and it happens with $25 million a year companies. So the concept is the same across the board. More revenue doesn't always solve your problems. In fact, sometimes more revenue will just increase the amount of work you have to do, but you're not actually making more money while you're at it. So you want to be in a stronger financial position the more you go, rather than just making more revenue and being in a weaker financial position. Knowing your profit margins is really, really important here. That's, out of when we make a new sale, how much money is going to be required to service or to produce the product, for that sale. So you've got your gross margins, and then you just have your everyday overhead. And by the time you subtract that out, what are your net margins? What is your net profit? How much money are you really making at the end of the day if you make one more sale? So you don't want to just create more work. You want to make sure that that work is increasingly profitable. All right, the second thing to look at is, have it in my notes, increase the amount of cash that you have in your business. When you have cash, you can adjust your priorities. That is like the ability to adjust the sales in response to different things that might come up in a storm. When you have cash, when you have 3 months of expenses and your owner pay socked away, I bet that would give us a lot more peace, a lot more reassurance, just so much, the ability to just think clearly and not make rash or impulsive decisions, right? The ability to stay creative, to be forward looking. If you have cash reserves, especially if you can get to 3 months of cash reserves to run the business and to pay yourself, that's going to give you that peace of mind and also that financial runway when things do get tough. And so if you need a little transition time, if you need a little runway time when you run into a challenge, that reserve is going to help you out a lot. And it's also going to keep you from being distracted with things that you don't really need to be distracted with. Like, oh, I don't know if I can make payroll, next week. Now, it's really important to make payroll and to pay the people who are working for you, but do you see how you lose a lot of creativity and productivity if you're spending your time and energy worried about that instead of having that be taken care of because you've got your cash flow working the right way for you, and then you can focus on, what's ahead and moving the business forward. So that's the other thing that I would look at. And then in terms of just strategy, so let's get into strategy. We want to make sure the ship is in good shape, that financially it's strong so that it can weather the storm. But then you don't just want to sit there, you want to actually move forward, right? And of course, if you don't have those tailwinds pushing you along and it's not sunny, you might not go in a perfectly linear fashion and you might not go as fast as you want to go. And that is okay. I want you to know it is okay if you are not making progress at the speed you would like to make it. It is more important to get your financial ducks in a row than it is to focus on growth at the same pace that you've been able to focus on growth in the last couple of years. So when it comes to growth, though, right now you have to ask yourself different questions, because it's not just like, well, how can I just charge more for my services? How can I just put more out there for people to buy? Because people aren't buying as much. So how do you get them to buy from you? That is the question. And it really boils down to this. How can you serve your customer right now? What do they need from you right now? Your needs as an entrepreneur are changing. Your circumstances are changing because your customers' circumstances and needs are changing. So what can you do to dig into what is it that they need or want from you right now in this very moment? You may have heard of the lipstick analogy. It's this idea that people will buy little creature comforts right now. They might not spend a ton of money. They might not be as willing to spend $200, $300, $400 on something, but they might be willing to spend premium on a luxury item that doesn't cost as much, like a lipstick. So they might be willing to spend $40 on a lipstick instead of $10 on a lipstick, because it's still an affordable luxury. So if you're in an industry where that may apply to you, what can you do to present an affordable luxury and sell the equivalent of that $40 lipstick? Here's another example. If you own a steakhouse and there are 5 different steakhouses of similar quality in the area, and you've had to increase your prices just to cover your increased costs from $60 to $70, well, I want you to focus on how you can offer the best customer experience. And this is across the board, no matter what industry you're in. But imagine put yourself in the shoes of your customer. If you have a choice between 3 steakhouses, let's make it even simpler, 2 steakhouses, and one steakhouse is charging $75 for a plate, and you're thinking, man, to be profitable and to be in the place where we really want to be, we really have to charge $82 a plate. Why would someone pay $7 a plate more for the same thing? They're not, because you're going to lean into the edge that you have, into your company's values, into the kind of business that you want to be, and you're going to find a way to give that customer an over the top customer experience. And the great thing is, this usually doesn't require any additional money. It's usually found in the way that customer is treated and taken care of from the second they walk through the door till the second that they leave the restaurant. And when people are being more cautious and more judicious about how they spend their disposable income, they're going to pick the higher price place if that higher price place is this much better in terms of the experience they're getting. It sort of goes back to that affordable luxury idea. But if you have to choose between 2 places, and they know they're going to be, this is a splurge anyway, and they're only going to a steakhouse maybe half as often as they used to, then they'll be willing to pay the higher amount if the experience is that much better. No one's going to pay premium for a subpar experience. So start thinking of ways that you can add value to that customer experience, to the way that they receive your product or service, to the way they interact with you. It doesn't have to be adding value to the product or service itself, which is usually going to cost you money to invest in it, right? So that's another way that you can really get a lot of customer loyalty. I really believe that relationships right now are super important. Not that they haven't been in the past, but I think we've historically, in the last 10 years or so, really relied a lot on automation, on low touch types of ways to interact with people. And I think that if you can find ways to create that incredible experience for your customer, no matter what industry you're in, where they feel known, where they feel seen and heard and valued by you, that is going to go a lot farther than sending out a ton of automatic marketing and doing lots of sales and just sort of low touch environment where it just sort of, a lot of companies, I think, are feeling desperate for sales, and I think it's coming across in the way that they're doing their marketing. So think about ways that you can give more and serve more and stand out in your industry. Dig deep into what your company values are and how you want the customer to experience you. And that loyalty will serve you through the recession, through economic hardship. And then when you come out on the other side of it, you're already going to have that customer base that's really loyal to you. So that's going to be something that is a sustainable strategy. And it doesn't have to cost you money. It doesn't have to eat into your profit margins. All right, let me know how that sits with you. I just threw a whole bunch of ideas at you. So write in the chat, send me a DM. I do want to let you know that I am offering right now, because this is a tough time, and so I want to be there for you guys. I'm offering right now a free 30-minute strategy session. Not a consultation call to see if we should like work together for a longer term, but just a free 30-minute strategy session. You can bring all your financial questions, all your business questions. I will rapid fire answer them as much as possible, and we will just do as much as we possibly can in that 30 minutes to work on your financial strategy going into 2023 so that you can stay on track with growing your business with a lot of confidence and a lot more profit and a lot less stress. So I will put the link for that in the comment section, and I have a limited number of spaces for that. Those will be starting the week after Thanksgiving, and then for the 3 weeks after that, I have availability. So grab a spot if you would like to strategize with me, and I would be happy to do that with you. All right, you guys, thanks for joining me today. Thanks for being here. Again, as always, write down your thoughts. What other ideas do you guys have for business owners in an economic recession? Comment, send me a DM. Would love to hear from you. Thanks for joining me again, and have a great rest of your day.